So I wanted, before we get started, to let everyone know that I have a new podcast out, and it's called Meditations. If you like the Meditations segment of this current podcast, you'll like the Meditations podcast. It's nothing but 20 minutes of meditative sounds. And now, on with the podcast.
Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate, just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
I lie when I'm getting room service.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, Apollo Wednesday, May the 14th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have headlines, patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, and Apollo. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now the headlines for Wednesday, May the 14th. Prices for essentials fall under President Trump. FDA warns seniors to avoid this vaccine after deadly complications. New Solicitor General prepares to take on nationwide injunctions. Mood flips at Columbia University after quashing of latest protest. Hamas's use of human shields is not just a tactic, it's the very basis of Hamas's existence. Syrian president supports establishing relations with Israel, but has a lot of work to do to achieve that. Tamer than expected inflation and a significant de-escalation of a U.S.-China trade war have given the Federal Reserve room to leave interest rates where they are. David Hogg removed as DNC vice chairman. And those are the headlines for Wednesday, May the 14th. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now the political corner.
I was wrong to ever trust these people. It's like and many Democrats are opening up to this acceptance that they were wrong, they were misguided, they were lied to, and it's all this bait and switch.
And that was the political corner. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Patriotic Short.
What was the deadliest armored fighting vehicle of World War II? The Stug 3, or Sturmgeschütz III, was a German tank destroyer that was designed to provide infantry support. The Stug 3 was a marvel of German engineering, blending lethality, reliability, and versatility into a single unstoppable package. It was armed with a devastating 7.5 centimeters gun that could destroy most Allied tank at long range. It was low to the ground and easy to camouflage, making it difficult for the enemy to spot and engage. It was also very mobile and could quickly reposition itself on the battlefield. Due to its low production cost, the Stug 3 was produced in large numbers by the Germans. The Stug 3 was a true jack-of-all-trades, supporting infantry attacks and destroying enemy armor, and it remains one of the most iconic armored fighting vehicles of all time.
And that was the Patriotic Short. Back in a minute. Thank you. You know what time it is. It's time to get motivated.
Make has consequences. Are you making yourself better? Or are you making yourself worse? Are you moving forward or are you moving back? Are you making progress or are you stagnating? Every little decision you make counts. There are no shortcuts. There are no hacks. If you want to take the easy road, I promise you it's longer and more painful than the hard road.
If you set out and you say you're going to do something, do yourself a favor and don't lie to yourself. Because that is the worst thing that an individual can ever do. You think you lying to your peers. You think you lying to your mother. You think you lying to your teacher. You think you lying to your coach. At the end of the day, when you look in the mirror, you lying to you. In 10 years from now, nobody can do anything for you. That's going to be the life that you created, not anybody else. You make your bed, you got to lay in it.
Let other people blame their parents, their boss, or the system. Let weaker people complain that the world isn't fair. You are the leader of your life. Choose the hard path. The path of responsibility, hard work, and sacrifice. The path of discipline, humility, and ownership that ultimately leads to freedom. Make discipline part of your daily life, and your daily life will get better.
Any goal that you want to achieve that's worthwhile in your life require all-in effort. Every moment, every minute, every hour, every every day, every week, every month, every fucking year, for as long as it fucking takes for you to get where you're going. You should be consumed with that path. What you do at night matters. What you do in the morning matters. What you do when your friends are out drinking matters. What you do on Saturday matters. What you do on Sunday matters. The success clock doesn't give a fuck what day it is. It's going to run no matter what. And you guys pretend like you can work 7, 8, 10 hours a day and then spend the rest of your time fucking off, and you think you're going to be somewhere, and you're not. You have to dedicate every fucking breath, every fucking ounce of energy, and every fucking thought and effort that you possibly have in your heart to becoming what it is you want to be. Because nothing great comes from a position of comfort. Everything worthwhile, everything that is great comes from being in a position of uncomfortable. Nothing worthwhile is easy to get. Everything's going to make you uncomfortable. Get fucking used to it. And if you can get used to being uncomfortable, your fucking limits are non-existent.
And that was motivation. Back in a minute. And now, time to mellow out.
Unlocking the secrets of the universe. So pure, so deep, so real. I want you to transcend realities.
that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. And now, the Daily Stoic.
Our hidden power. Consider who you are. Above all, a human being, carrying no greater power than your own reasoned choice, which oversees all other things and is free from any other master. Epictetus, Discourses, 2.10.1. The psychologist Viktor Frankl spent 3 years imprisoned in various concentration camps, including Auschwitz. His family and his wife had been killed, his life's work destroyed, his freedom taken from him. He quite literally had nothing left. Yet, as he discovered after much thought, he still retained one thing: the ability to determine what this suffering meant. Not even the Nazis could take that from him. Further, Frankl realized that he could actually find positives in his situation. Here was an opportunity to continue testing and exploring his psychological theories, and perhaps revise them. He could still be of service to others. He even took some solace in the fact that his loved ones were spared the pain and misery that he faced daily in that camp. Your hidden power is your ability to use reason and make choices, however limited or small. Think about the areas of your life where you are under duress or weighed down by obligation. What are the choices available to you day after day? You might be surprised at how many there actually are. Are you taking advantage? Are you finding the positives?
And that was the Daily Stoic. And now, The Exorcist.
Holiest people I know were possessed or are possessed. I knew a woman that actually reached the 4th level of prayer and started having mystical contemplation just as the possession broke. And then one of the cases that I'm working with now, she's possessed by Beelzebub, which is the demon of impurity, and I've seen her go 6 months without committing venial sin. She took a vow of chastity 14 years ago once the possession was outed, and she's never once violated it. And so he has become the instrument of her sanctification. She's becoming one of the most, if there's any person that I can say that has the true virtue of virtue of mortification, that willingness to suffer, it's her. And so God uses them. Usually possessed people will say, well, I'm glad I got out of this what I got out of this, but I don't think I'd want to be possessed again. So that's just how demons function psychologically. And each time you get a different demon, and you can just see by their patterns of thinking that they just have. Their characteristics are different. Like I said, their personalities are very...
And that was The Exorcist. Thank you. And now, narcissists and psychopaths.
The moment that happens, they have the most powerful force in human psychology and behavior. They doubled down. They became more faithful.
Now let's say someone's in a narcissistic relationship. I'm sure you've probably even known someone in your life that have been in a relationship. You and everyone else has looked at them and been like, get out.
Yeah.
Why are you in that? Can you not see that they're controlling you? Can you not see this? How come they can't see it?
That's a tough one.
Mm.
So the reason that they can't see it is they are in a cycle that has to do with their identity. So I am the kind of person who is kind. I'm the kind of person who stays in relationships. I'm the kind of person who doesn't give up. I see the good in this person. You know what I mean? So everything that's keeping them in the relationship is about who they are as a person, identity. So once their identity becomes whatever, fill in the blank, I'm staying with this person, I'm a good person. Now, the moment they start approaching a thought of maybe I'm in a relationship with a narcissist, maybe I'm being manipulated, maybe there's more to what's going on here. The moment that happens, they have the most powerful force in human psychology and behavior, and that is cognitive dissonance. So this is when we push up against this force. There's a book out there. I wish I can't remember the author, but it's called When Prophecy Fails. It's about this cult, and they predict the end of the world is coming. Everything's going to end. Everything's going to be giant balls of fire. Aliens are going to come, destroy the entire planet, and it's going to happen on this exact day at this exact time. So they build up to the date. They do all these preparations. They're saying all of these prayers and all of that. And the day comes, Leon Festinger is the author's name. And the day comes, and they double down on their beliefs, even though the thing didn't happen. They double down. So this really tells us that if I have an identity that says I am this kind of person, the cognitive dissonance is so powerful that it can completely blind us to facts and things that are absolutely true. So they doubled down and said, many of them said, this didn't happen because we prayed so hard, because we got so ready for it. So we knew so much about this destruction that was going to happen that they decided to cancel the destruction of Earth. So a lot of the followers, you would think that the moment that doomsday scenario didn't happen, they're going to leave. They're going to take off their little hooded robes and cult robes and stuff, and everybody's going to walk out the front door. They doubled down. They became more faithful. So that is the power of cognitive dissonance. And it's the same thing that happens in these relationships. Something bad happens in the relationship, I'm going to double down on my faith because of the type of person that I see myself as being.
So they fall into the idea of, like, I could help this person?
Maybe. Or it could be, I am a good person. Or I see this person's true potential and no one else does. And then we get below identity. The one thing more powerful than human identity is worldview. Because they see the world as people are capable of changing and doing something good for themselves, right?
And that was dealing with how people get stuck with narcissists and psychopaths. Back in a minute. Thank you, Maria, then Stu.
On to new highs. This is a fine time to buy right now. You're going to do just fine.
Golden age, Mehek.
Well, I have to go back to President Trump's, the donation he's receiving from Qatar, this jet. Democrats are going to grandstand, Maria, but at the end of the day, this is not a personal toy for President Trump. This is a donation to the U.S. government, and it's legal. I think there's going to be a lot of pushback because Democrats can't point to anything else.
Bernie Sanders talked with Bret Baier the other day, and Bret did a great interview of Bernie Sanders because he used a private jet to fly over for all the campaigning.
What am I going to stand with the United
That's the way it's done, you know? That's the way it's done.
Well, this is a benefit to the U.S. government first, and Democrats can't stand it. They just got Camelback. That's all they got when they went to Qatar, and they're upset about that.
Well, we're gonna watch that story as it develops. Mehek Cook, Adam Johnson, and Nancy Tangler, thank you. Great show today. Have a great day, everybody. We're going to send it over to Stu. Varney and Company picks it up. Stu, take it away.
Hey, good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. In the Mideast, President Trump is pushing for region-wide peace and prosperity. It is an ambitious plan, and he's making progress. He's removed all sanctions from Syria and has met with its new leader. He is stabilizing a war-torn country. In talks, he is telling the Iranians they can develop their economy, they can be prosperous, but they can't have a nuclear weapon. Most ambitious of all, Trump wants the Saudis to join the Abraham Accords and normalize relations with Israel. The markets like the huge business deals Trump's organizing, and they really like peace and prosperity. Stocks, pre-market, mostly higher. The Dow up maybe 40, small gain for the S&P, NASDAQ up about 50. There are a number of Wall Street analysts, and one of them will be on the show, who are calling for a big further rally in the second half of the year if we get tax cuts, less red tape, more trade deals, and peace in the Mideast. As for Bitcoin, we're looking at 103,900 as we speak. The 10-year Treasury yield, now that's getting real close to 4.5%. The 2-year is now above 4%. You're at 4.02. On the show today, we're following the president's Mideast tour moment to moment. He's now in Qatar. He has an extremely active schedule, but shows no sign of fatigue. The president's approval level is moving up. Voters' fear of recession fading, and the president is looking good on the world stage. He's currently at 44% approval, up 2 points since late April. Senator Schumer faces the music for his role in covering up President Biden's decline. He had declared Biden's mental acuity great. It's fine, he said. As good as it's been over the years, he said. A reporter challenged him. He refused to answer. The Democrats are tearing the party apart.
Wait, it gets worse. New books detailing the Biden fiasco show how his aides were considering putting him in a wheelchair because he was so frail. They refused a cognitive test on the ground that they didn't know what it would reveal. Wednesday, May 14th, 2025.
And that was Stu Varney and Maria Bartiromo, Nonprofit News Now. Thank you. Now the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Candace at TS.
Où je vais agiter comme jamais, amérindianiser, surfeusiser ce que vous voulez, bombe atomique évidemment, et rosiser, mais rosiser suspect. Je vais à l'anniversaire de Roy, mon frère. Ce soir, on l'a invité chez Carrington numéro 3. Après, on a mis Stéphane, Cyril, qui n'arrive pas du tout à avaler la pilule, connaît la connaissance. Congé le PSG, il m'a dit, je suis parti à Tunis pour te contrer, il m'a dit. Donc, grâce à Rabbi Haïta et Blomet. Donc, j'ai envie de vous dire que le meilleur gagne. Allez, à tout à l'heure. Ouais, je l'ai parlé aussi. Et Elnet, je vous l'ai dit, j'ai récupéré ma laque. Ma sœur m'avait escladé au sol, je l'ai déjà dit, parce qu'elle dit ça. J'avais ramené qu'un petit modèle. Et nous, on est sur de la Elnet noire à total, on rigole pas du tout. Matin, midi, soir. Allez, à tout à l'heure, je dois y aller, je moins 1 heure.
And that was Candace. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, what does the phrase, if you're explaining, you're losing, mean? This was said by Ronald Reagan, speaking of political campaigns. From the perspective of your audience, if you have to explain yourself, you come off looking desperate to convince. As a consequence, you lose the high ground. From a more philosophical perspective, if you have a clear conscience and strong conviction towards the positions you take, your values, truth, and direction, you don't need the opinions or consent of others. As a consequence, you don't need to explain yourself. However, if you yourself are not convinced of the validity and truth of your position, or you can't fully justify your choices, then you continue to expel words in an attempt to create the illusion of certainty. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Maria Bartiromo with clips of an interview from, clips of an interview that she did with President Trump. What the heck did we do here? Where is it? There it is.
Odds below 50%. They predicting now only one rate cut this year in December. Barclays is dismissing a recession altogether. He says no recession for the year. And, President Trump was calm the whole way through. I asked him all about this back in March, and he said, relax, hold on, we'll have some disruption, but it'll all work out. Watch this. Are you expecting a recession this year?
Okay, so now the correct answer to that question is I don't make predictions. The question is, should there be inflation this year? And the answer is no. That's the way you should answer it. Let's see what he says.
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time. But I think it should be great for us. I mean, I think it should be great.
You said, look, we're going to have a disruption, but we're okay with that. Is that what you meant? The stock market going down was the disruption? What other disruption were you alluding to?
Look, what I have.
There you go. So the way he should answer this, we'll find out in a second how he does answer it, but the way he should answer it is say, I spoke plain English. Everybody understands English. And so everybody knows and understands what I was saying and what I was referring to. That's the correct answer. Let's see how he did it.
To do is build a strong country. You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective. We have a quarter. We go by quarters.
That's true.
And you can't go by that. You have to do what's right. What we're doing is we're building a tremendous foundation for the future. Tremendous foundation.
You know, what I like about this is that...
So if he does things the other way, which is what he was doing, basically he concedes that everybody in the country is stupid and that everybody in the country needs to be hand or spoon fed and have everything explained to them to the nth degree. It's also a very good way of gaslighting people because her questioning, the way she asked the question, because it's frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating if you're the person on the receiving end of the question, if you don't know what she's doing. I know what she's doing. If she'd been interviewing me, then again, I would have given her a reality-based response. I don't make predictions. I can only tell you what I should happen or what I hope happens. And what I hope happens is that inflation is brought under control sooner rather than later. That's the correct answer there. And to do anything else is to take part in a gaslighting episode. And that shouldn't be done. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Apollo.
3. Up on level A8 and later in the cavernous pyrotechnic installation building over near the ONC building, Simpkinson's disassembly of spacecraft 012 was underway, an investigation that would be remembered by many as the most intense single effort of the whole Apollo program. It was a tortuous experience. Marty Schofiletti, the young North American engineer, remembered writing test preparation sheets, TPS, for removing the engines from the command module and disassembling the propulsion system. He explained the process. Suppose the disassembly was approaching the point where the team would be ready to take out a screw in one of Schofiletti's systems. Before Schofiletti or any of his technicians could touch it, Schofiletti had to write a TPS that would specify the physical action, unscrew the screw, the part number of that particular screw, the torque that was supposed to be necessary to break the screw loose. With the TPS in hand, Schofiletti, the presiding engineer, would read an instruction. A North American quality inspector would move into place. One of NASA's inspectors would move into place. A photographer would be called over. A North American technician would get into the burned-out spacecraft, observing whatever specific precautions were detailed for getting to that particular part of the spacecraft at that particular stage of the disassembly process. And then, using the specified mechanical device, take the screw out. The engineer would record the torque necessary to break it free. The technician would hand the screw to the North American quality inspector, who would make sure that it was the right part and the right part number, recording his results on his copy of the TPS. The North American inspector would hand it to the NASA inspector, who would record his observations. The photographer would take a picture of the part. The engineer would then put the screw in a plastic bag, label it, and take it to the appropriate repository. If in the course of this process you found that an unanticipated step had to be added or a planned step changed, everything came to a halt while the revised TPS was sent to the review board for approval of the deviation. even though you were the one who wrote the procedure in the first place. This for a screw. It was, Schofiletti said, the most excruciating technical dissection of a machine I could ever imagine happening. It drove some of the astronauts to distraction. They knew the interior of that spacecraft. It was a second home. They knew what it looked like and felt like, how you moved around in it, the things that got joggled and bumped and scraped. If only they could get to O12. But there was Scotty Simpkinson, the Cerberus of the disassembly hangar, growling at anyone who tried to get close without following procedures. In retrospect, Simpkinson was sympathetic. They just got disgusted with the rigmarole you had to go through to take a look at an idea you had, you know. What if this happened? Well, if we could just see that thing, we could tell if it did. Then they'd have to go through badges and certain times of day and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of got them upset. But there wasn't any choice, Simpkinson said. You just cannot go haphazard at an accident review, that's all. Just can't do it. And through it all, the North American engineers kept saying to themselves, please don't let it be my system. Please let my system be clean. Please let it be someone else's responsibility. I hate to say that, Schofiletti said, but you really thanked God it wasn't your system, that it was somebody else's, and you could breathe easy again. Once the data had been pulled together, and one could be fairly sure about what events had occurred in what order, Simpkinson's disassembly panel was just one of 21 panels working on the overall investigation. There remained the problem of deciding the cause. A fire has 3 requirements: oxygen, flammable materials, and an ignition source. The spacecraft had oxygen in abundance, pure and under pressure. The spacecraft also contained flammable materials, more than anyone had intended. All that the investigators needed to do was discover the ignition source. The panels on the investigation kept weeding out possibilities until finally 2 things became clear. First, they would never be able to prove exactly what had happened, though a short in the cable bundle near the ECU was the prime suspect. Second, this had not been a 1-in-a-million freak accident that could never happen again. There were lots of ways a fire could have gotten started in that spacecraft. Combustibles. There were 5,000 square inches of Velcro in a cabin that was supposed to have contained 500. A source of ignition. Unless the elements of the electrical system were installed immaculately, the tangle of wiring in the spacecraft could be a scattering of match heads waiting for something to scratch them. North American quickly came under scrutiny. The next spacecraft in line, CM-017, intended for the first all-up flight of the Saturn V, had arrived at the Cape 2 weeks before the fire and been subjected to the standard inspection before being taken to the VAB for mating with the launch vehicle. After the fire, it was removed and taken back to the ONC building's White Room for a new and more thorough examination. Like everyone else at the Cape, the inspectors waited for the 204 board to complete its work, fearful that the fire had been caused by something they had missed. Now, with that possibility still on everyone's mind, the inspectors went after 017 in a state of mind that bordered on obsessive. They began finding skinned wires and called Joe Bobick, the Cape's chief inspector for the spacecraft. Bobick went to the White Room and looked for himself. The more I looked, the worse it looked. The wires weren't routed neat. They were crisscrossed in a junky way, that kind of stuff. I went to Rocco Petrone and I said, "Hey Rocco, we got a problem. I want to inspect that whole vehicle." They were finding too many skinned wires, he told Petrone, 20 or 30 already. Petrone was incredulous. "Yeah," Bobick told Petrone. "Don't look too great either. Workmanship's not the best." "We can't take out any instrument panels," he remembered Petrone saying. "You take them down and you've got to redo all the tests. Do you know what you're asking?" "Yeah, but we got to take them down," Bobick said. "Just too many problems. Can't fly that way." Rocco Petrone came down to the White Room in the ONC to see the vehicle. He looked and shook his head and swore. The more Joe Bobick thought about it, the more he began to think that even taking down the instrument panels wasn't enough. He had been bothered for some time by the evidence of people pushing too hard out at Downey. Skinned wires, sloppy work. "Send it back," he told Patron. "Send the damn thing back to the factory. It's that bad." Patron couldn't do that. This was late February, only weeks after the fire, and for NASA to let it be known that the next spacecraft was being sent back to the factory was tantamount to killing the North American contract. Congress, gearing up for its own investigation, was unlikely to accept anything less. While few at NASA would grieve for North American, to switch the spacecraft contract to a new company would mean a long delay in the moon landing, 2 years at least, probably more, pushing it into the 1970s. More than that, the program itself would be in jeopardy. A flurry of visits to spacecraft 017 followed. Shea came over from the disassembly area to examine it. Bobick would remember seeing tears in Shea's eyes as he left. Gilruth flew in from Houston. North American people flew in from Downey. And finally, Sam Phillips, chief of the Apollo program office at NASA headquarters, flew in from Washington. "I took him in the spacecraft. I started showing him all this stuff," Bobick said. "He didn't know what to say. Very quiet. Came out, didn't say anything. Not one word or nothing. I knew he didn't like it, but I couldn't figure out what he was going to do or say." On March 2nd, ASPO told headquarters that because of many wiring discrepancies found in Apollo spacecraft 017, a more thorough inspection was required, and all 12 main display control panels were to be removed. The more thorough inspection eventually revealed 1,407 errors.
And that was Chapter 15, Section 3 of Apollo by Charles Murray and Catherine Bly Cox. Back in a minute. Thank you, and this is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that rights are not collective. They are joint and several.